You believe you've let him go because you've gone silent, but let me ask you, have you gone quiet, or have you merely gone hollow? We live in a time where we confuse absence with healing. You've pressed no contact. You've deleted, blocked, vanished. But your heart, it still rehearses conversations that will never happen. You still wonder what he's thinking. You check the phone, not for a message, but for the absence of one, and that absence is just as loud. You see, no contact is a doorway, not the destination, and most people camp at the door, thinking they've arrived. But the truth is, if your silence is a performance, it is not freedom. It's still a play. You're just hoping he's in the audience. Let us look at the situation differently. The goal is not to make him feel your absence. It is to become so immersed in your presence that his presence no longer defines you. Then, and only then, he will feel something far more profound than silence. He will feel your evolution, because here is the paradox: when you truly let go, not just of him, but of the need to be felt by him, you become powerful. You become untouchable, not cold, not bitter, but free. And when you no longer need his reaction to validate your healing, that's when he feels it. He won't feel your silence, he'll feel your calm. He won't notice your disappearance, he'll notice your expansion. You no longer orbit his world, you've become a world of your own. So I invite you, don't just disappear, transform, don't just be silent. Become still, not passive, not waiting, but overflowing with a life that no longer negotiates with the past. And here's the mystery: he will feel it, not because you tried, but because you stopped trying. So the next time you wonder if he notices your absence, remember, true presence does not need to be loud to be known, and this is the art of letting go so deeply that you no longer need to be remembered because you have remembered yourself. We often confuse silence with healing, assuming that by merely removing ourselves from communication, we have done the work of release. But silence, when not rooted in true detachment, is simply noise turned inward. The drama has not ended, it has only gone underground. The mind continues its theater, replaying memories, scripting new conversations, and wondering when, or if, he will notice the absence. No contact becomes a waiting room, not a liberation. You stop speaking, but you haven't stopped listening for echoes. You tell yourself you've moved on, but your emotions are still orbiting him like satellites around a collapsed star. The gravitational pull remains, invisible but immense. And in this quiet, you suffer in secrecy, because the world applauds your strength for walking away, not knowing how much of you is still sitting at the edge of what you left behind. You see, true freedom is not in the act of withdrawal. It is in the collapse of the emotional dependence that once held you there. If the silence is a tactic, it is still a connection. If you are silent in hopes that he will come running, then he still owns a part of your energy. The chords may be invisible, but they hum with electricity. Silence, in that case, is not power. It is performance. You are playing the role of the one who doesn't care, hoping that he will care more because of it. But the universe does not reward manipulation, even the subtle kind dressed in spiritual robes. It rewards truth, and the truth is, unless your silence is accompanied by an inner transformation, it will only deepen your attachment. You become quiet, but louder inside. You become still, but only in posture, not in essence. To be truly free, the silence must be born from peace, not pain. It must come not from a need to protect yourself, but from the realization that there is nothing left to protect. You are not withholding your voice. You have simply outgrown the need to speak where you are no longer heard. This is not the silence of punishment. It is the silence of evolution. It says, I no longer seek to be understood by the one who never saw me. And in that moment, you are no longer trying to be noticed. You are noticing yourself, and that noticing, that radical act of self-witnessing, is the real release, because no contact is just the beginning. It is a space, not a solution. It is the quiet before the real work begins. It gives you the stillness needed to hear the noise you've been carrying. It's in that stillness that you come face to face with the truth. Healing isn't about walking away. It's about no longer looking back. Only then, in that rare moment of genuine surrender, does silence become sacred, not a pause, not a tactic, but but a living, breathing statement of who you are now, without needing to be heard to feel whole. When we think about communication, we often focus on the words we say, the messages we send, the texts we leave unread. But beneath the surface of speech lies something far more powerful, energy. It is the invisible language that transcends sentences, tones, and gestures. Energy is the vibration we carry into every room, the atmosphere we create simply by being. When you choose no contact, it's not the absence of your voice that makes the deepest impact. It is the shift in your energy that resonates on a level beyond conscious understanding. Imagine a room where two people once danced in a complicated rhythm. The music stops and one steps away, saying nothing. The other person doesn't need to hear words to know something has changed. The space itself feels different. The tension, the expectation, the hope, all are carried not in conversation, but in the subtle currents between them. This is energy speaking. It is the quiet language of presence, absence, and transformation. When you cease contact, you might think you're simply withdrawing, but in truth you are signaling a shift. Your energy no longer orbits around him. You no longer vibrate with the frequency of his attention or validation. This creates a ripple that can be felt even if no one acknowledges it. It is a shift from dependency to independence, from reaction to serenity. The world is sensitive to these vibrations, and people, especially those once close, sense when you have moved beyond their reach, not through words, but through the new energy you radiate. Words can be faked, scripted, and controlled. Energy cannot. It is the unconscious message you send, louder than any text, louder than silence. You might think that ignoring him or cutting contact is the ultimate power play, but unless your inner energy transforms, unless your being becomes a wellspring of calm, confidence, and self-love, your silence will ring hollow. He will feel the tension in your absence, but he won't feel the liberation until you embody it. This energy shift is not about forcing him to feel pain or regret. That is a misunderstanding of power. True power is effortless. It is the energy of someone who has no need to prove anything, who moves through life unshaken by another's presence or absence. When you cultivate that energy, you create a space so vast and magnetic that it naturally invites recognition. It's not a trap or a strategy. It is an invitation to witness your transformation. The key is to focus inward, to become deeply aware of the energy you carry, not as a mask, but as an authentic expression of your growth. Meditation, self-reflection, and acts of kindness toward yourself cultivate this energy. The more you invest in your own light, the less you rely on external echoes to feel seen. This inner light shines in your silence, making it meaningful and unmistakable. So when you go no contact, do not rely on the absence of words alone. Infuse your being with the energy of peace and wholeness. Let him feel not the void you leave behind, but the radiance of a life that no longer waits for his validation. That energy, more than any message, will speak loud enough to touch the deepest parts of him, whether or not a single word is ever exchanged again. When we decide to go no contact, there is often an unspoken hope beneath the surface, a hope that by removing ourselves, we can control the story, control his feelings, control the outcome. But this hope, while understandable, is an illusion. Withdrawal is not a lever we pull to manipulate reality. It is simply a gesture in a larger, uncontrollable flow. The truth is that by trying to control his reaction through silence, we remain entangled in the very web we seek to escape. Control is a comforting myth we tell ourselves when faced with uncertainty. We believe that if we stop reaching out, if we withhold contact, the other person will feel the emptiness we want them to feel. We imagine that absence will create longing, and longing will create regret, and regret will bring change. But this is a projection, a story our minds create to soothe the ache of powerlessness. It is as if we think the universe bends to our will because we stop speaking, as if silence is a kind of command. Yet life does not operate by commands, it operates by flow and energy, by acceptance and release. Withdrawal, if motivated by a desire for control, keeps us tethered to outcomes. We wait and watch, hoping to see the exact effect we desire, turning our freedom into a form of bondage. This waiting is a trap because it places our peace and happiness in the hands of another's reaction. We hold our breath in anticipation, and in that holding we become prisoners. The irony is that the more we try to steer his feelings, the more we remain locked in the same emotional orbit, unable to break free. True freedom is found not in controlling how he feels, but in relinquishing the need to control anything outside of ourselves. It is the surrender to the unpredictable nature of life and love. When you release the illusion of control, the energy shifts profoundly. You stop investing your power in outcomes and begin investing it in your own growth, your own peace. The silence then ceases to be a tactic and becomes a sanctuary. This surrender does not mean indifference. It does not mean giving up on yourself or on love. It means embracing uncertainty with grace, understanding that the only part of this dance you truly command is your own presence. You become a river flowing, not a dam holding back. You allow feelings to come and go without clinging or pushing, and in that flow you find an unexpected strength. The moment you stop trying to force a reaction, the weight of expectation lifts, you breathe again. And in that breathing space, you may find that he feels your absence, not because you controlled it, but because your release created a new reality where your value is no longer negotiable. The illusion of control fades, and in its place rises a freedom so profound that neither silence nor words are necessary. You simply are, and that being is the most powerful message of all. In the aftermath of heartbreak or separation, our first instinct is often to react, to respond to the pain, to the loss, to the memories that haunt us. Reaction is natural. It is the reflex of a wounded heart grasping for understanding or justice. But reaction keeps us locked in a cycle of being pulled backward by what was, a prisoner of past moments and feelings. It is a loop of echoing emotions that can drown us if we allow it. To truly move beyond no contact, to move beyond mere silence, we must transcend reaction and step into creation, a higher way of being that liberates us from the chains of pain. To react is to be caught in the tide of what someone else has done or failed to do. It is to give them power over your emotional state. Every text left unread, every unanswered call becomes fuel for your restless mind. But to create is to shift from victim to artist, from reactor to architect of your own life. Creation is a deliberate act. It is building a new rhythm that does not depend on his presence or absence. It is composing a melody of self, discovery, growth, and joy that plays regardless of external circumstances. This shift from reaction to creation requires deep courage because it asks you to stop looking for answers outside and start cultivating meaning within. It is to say, I will no longer wait for you to change, to feel regret, or to reach out. I will change, I will heal, I will live. It means pouring your energy into building a life that sings with your true self, rather than one shadowed by longing. It is creating a space inside where his memory does not dictate your mood, your worth, or your future. Creation is not about denial or avoidance. It is about transformation. It is acknowledging the hurt, but choosing to express your power through something new. Whether it is rediscovering passions, nurturing friendships, pursuing dreams, or simply embracing solitude with grace, creation moves beyond the reactive mind to the expansive heart. It is in this space that healing truly begins. When you create, you send a message far louder than any silence could. You are whole, you are evolving, and you are no longer dependent on his validation or recognition. This presence, this energy, becomes magnetic. It does not scream for attention, it quietly commands respect, and ironically, in this very act of creation, free from expectation, you give him something no silence alone could ever provide, the undeniable sense that life moves on, beautifully and without him. So, no contact is not the end, nor is it the full solution. It is the threshold you cross before becoming the creator of your own story. Reaction keeps you tethered to the past. Creation breaks those chains and invites you into the vast unknown of your own becoming, where you are not defined by absence or presence, but by the limitless power of your own spirit. When you think about no contact, the common image that comes to mind is withdrawal, turning away from the other person, cutting off communication, creating distance. It feels like a fortress built to protect yourself from further hurt. But the real transformation does not lie in turning away from him. It lies in turning inward, because when you turn away without turning inward, you are only shifting your attention, not your energy. The heart remains restless, and the mind continues to chase what it believes it has lost. True healing is not found in avoidance, but in presence. Presence with yourself. Turning inward means looking deeply into your own being, not to criticize or fix, but to understand and accept. It means facing the parts of yourself that you may have neglected while caught in the emotional storm of the relationship, the fears, the hopes, the wounds, and the strength. It's all waiting quietly for your attention. When you turn inward, you begin to witness these aspects without judgment. You become a compassionate observer of your own experience rather than a captive of your past. This inward turning is an act of courage and grace. It asks you to stop projecting your need for validation outward and instead find that validation within. To sit with your loneliness rather than fill it with distractions. To embrace your solitude as fertile ground for growth rather than as an empty void to be feared. This is where the true work of no contact unfolds, not in silence imposed on another, but in the sacred silence you cultivate within. When your focus shifts inward, your energy changes. It moves from reactive to receptive, from fragmented to whole. The craving for his attention begins to lose its grip, because you are no longer defined by his presence or absence. You begin to realize that the power you sought from him was always inside you. The space you once tried to create between you and him becomes a space you create within yourself, a space filled with peace, self-love, and clarity. And here lies the paradox. By turning inward, you become more fully present in the world. You are no longer hiding behind silence or avoidance. Instead, you are standing firmly in your own essence. This presence is magnetic and undeniable. It does not need to shout or plead. It simply is. And this is what he will feel. Not just your absence, but your profound transformation. No contact, then, is not a weapon or a game. It is a gateway and invitation to rediscover the richness of your inner landscape. It is the moment you stop running away from your pain and start sitting with it, learning from it, and letting it guide you back to yourself. In that inward turn lies the truest form of freedom, because when you come home to yourself, no one else's presence or absence can unsettle the harmony you've found within. There is a peculiar kind of power that comes when you stop trying to prove yourself to someone who once mattered deeply. When you were entangled in the relationship, so much of your energy was spent trying to be seen, to be heard, to be understood, and sometimes to be loved. You sent messages, waited for replies, analyzed every gesture and every silence. But the moment you release that need, the moment you no longer seek validation from him, you begin to embody a truth far more profound than any words could express. It is in this space of quiet confidence, of unshakable self-worth, that he will truly feel your presence. Trying to make him feel your absence is a fragile strategy, because it depends entirely on his attention. It's like throwing a stone into a pond and hoping the ripples reach just the right shore. But when your self-worth is tethered to his recognition, you remain vulnerable, susceptible to disappointment and pain. The subtle energy of neediness or expectation clings to you, even in silence. This energy is palpable, and it tells a story of incompleteness. People sense it intuitively, whether they admit it or not. Now imagine something different. Imagine that you have let go of the story that you need to prove anything to him or anyone else. You carry yourself with a calm assurance that does not seek approval. This is not arrogance or coldness. It is a deep acceptance of your own value. It is the radiance of someone who knows their own worth, independent of outside validation. When you inhabit this space, your silence no longer feels like a void or a punishment. It becomes a presence, rich, full, and magnetic, and this presence, this energy, is what he will feel, far more keenly than any carefully crafted message or strategic withdrawal. It is the energy of a soul who has healed, who has moved beyond the past, and who lives fully in their own light. This kind of presence speaks louder than words. It communicates without trying. It does not need to be noticed because it is already profoundly known, first by yourself, then by the world. The irony is that when you stop trying to make him feel your absence, that's exactly when he feels it the most. Because what you are really embodying is freedom. Freedom from the past, freedom from the need to control, freedom from the compulsion to prove your worth. And freedom is magnetic. Freedom commands attention not by force, but by the natural law of attraction. It says, without saying, that you are whole, you are enough, and you are no longer waiting. So instead of focusing on what he should feel, focus on what you have become, a person who no longer needs to prove themselves to anyone. When you reach that place, the ripples of your transformation will inevitably reach him, not as a plea, but as a quiet, undeniable truth that resonates deeper than any word ever could. No contact is not merely an act of silence, it is a doorway. But silence alone cannot carry the weight of healing, growth, or transformation. It must be filled with something far greater, an inner shift of energy, presence, and self-awareness. When you stop reacting, stop trying to control, and instead turn inward to create and embody your own wholeness, the absence you leave behind becomes a powerful force, not because you demand it, but because you no longer need to demand anything at all. In that space of true freedom, you become a living invitation to witness the beauty of your own evolution. And in that invitation, he will feel it, not through words, but through the undeniable truth of who you have become.